Hello and welcome to DUI's surprise special draw set recommendations for May 2024. Hope you guys are all having fun farming the newly released M3 raids, Celeste and Colossus. I myself have finished my Celeste farm, so I will be moving on to Colo whenever I can. Now, just a bit of housekeeping. I just want to mention the surprise ticket you can purchase up until 6:59 PM on May 10th. Now, currently, we do have daily temples whenever you log into the game. Wait until those free pulls are over before you choose your target. You don't want to choose your target and then pull them from the free temples. So please wait until at least until the free pulls are over before you use your ticket. All right, with that out of the way, let's get right into the recommendations. So, as usual, things aren't ordered. This is merely a means to show you different categories and a way to present the information. All right. So first up, let's talk about some fire characters. So immediately, my top pick for fire would be Ragazzo. Ragazzo is an extremely strong offensive character for fire. He's used in full auto, he's used for burst, and he's also used for things like even Siete farming. He won't be used, however, in hard content like Far Zero or places like that, but pretty much everywhere else, he is really, really good. He's probably one of my most used fire characters alongside Percival Grand and Zeta Grand. He's really useful for bringing in evokers as well in fire and outside of fire because he guaranteed dies in 2 turns with his 3rd skill. So very, very strong character. He does so much damage for the 2 turns that he's alive for, and then he pieces out for someone very useful like Frau or Alanan, or maybe even an upcoming surprise ticket recommendation. So Ragazzo, one of my top picks for fire. Let's move on. Next up, we have Agielba. So Agielba, this character, first thing to note is that he is only available in the classic draw, which means if you're pulling on the regular banners, you'll have no chance to get him. So a surprise ticketing him is one of the only ways to actually pull him. Outside of that, Agielba is quite useful because of his defensive capabilities. This skill here upgrades once he's at 5 stars, and he just becomes a very, very good defensive tank. He's mainly used for harder full autos like Siete, or he can also be used for things like fast Iwia FAs. Overall, he's a pretty solid character and my second pick for fire. All right, next up, I would like to talk about Icarus. So Icarus is the quote-unquote 3rd evoker for fire, in the sense that he has this particular passive. When he switches to a main ally, he gains 5 crests. And this is really important because it's used to activate this skill. And this skill is really, really, really strong. So where Icarus is mainly used is in conjunction with a character like Ragazzo earlier, who will attack for a bit, die, and then Icarus comes in, and then Icarus sort of finishes off the raid while this is going on. Icarus in the past has been used for certain Guild Ball setups and even places like Siete HL as well. You can also use him in your daily full auto rotations with Ragazzo as well. So if you have Ragazzo, Icarus can be a pretty solid pick for that. All right, let's move on. We have some water characters to talk about. So first up in the water list, we have Zeta. So Zeta is a really strong offensive character for water. She is pretty much the embodiment of like the glass cannon. She's really frail. You can see in her passives, she has low defense, and she also cuts her HP whenever she charge attacks. But during the time that she's alive, she does a lot of damage. If you click her buttons, she has her own self anytime assassin. But even if you don't click buttons, she's actually quite useful because she has this particular passive, which is bonus water damage effect to water allies upon triple attacks. So she's used for some of these really fast and speedy full autos and burst teams where she just provides damage without clicking a button. So she's very good for those sorts of racing strats. Okay, next up, we have Arn. So Arn, with her 5-star uncap, she becomes a very strong defensive support full auto character. She's not really used for any manuals or anything like that, but for places like Mugen full auto, she can be quite useful. All right, next we have another spear character. Actually, we have Filene. So Filene, on her release, she was okay. Then she got rebalanced, but the main thing that Filene got at the moment is really strong synergies with meta water characters. Those two being Gabriel and Europa. So how Filene works is that she auto-activates some of her skills when other people inflict Glaciate. And Europa and Gabriel both inflict that. Overall, she's a really solid unit for full auto purposes. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's talk about some Earth characters. So newly added to this ticket, we have Earth Olivia. So this character is really strong. In fact, she's so strong that if this particular skill set was on a seasonal character, it wouldn't surprise me, but she's a permanent character. If you don't have Olivia, I would strongly consider getting her. As long as you don't need someone for this upcoming Dark Guild War, I think Olivia is a really strong pick. She's just a super good character for full auto. She's also been used in some burst teams, and she's even used in HL Hard Far Zero as well. So Olivia, if I had to choose an overall top pick in this surprise ticket this time, it would be Olivia. Alright, next, let's talk about another dirt character. This time, less on the offensive side and much more on the defensive side, we have Arulu. Arulu is, once again, sort of like Agielba and Arn, she is only available in Classic Draw. With her full limit break and her rebalances, she becomes a really strong defensive character. She's used in full autos like Diaspora, and she's also used for HL content like Far Zero. And in particular, it's mostly for these two passive skills here. Overall, really strong character, and her being in Classic makes it a pretty good surprise ticket choice because it's unlikely to pull at you if you are not pulling on Classic. So keep that in mind. Alright, so next up, let's talk about the final Earth character here. We have Satyr. So, Satyr. In the past, Satyr was like a instant recommend for Earth, but these days I can't say the same. In fact, I sort of contemplated on even putting her in this list. I think Satyr is still worthy of a mention. She is still quite good for charger type based teams, and since Kengo is a very accessible playstyle, I think Satyr is still worth mentioning. However, I would not personally ticket Satyr over the previous two Earth characters I mentioned, being Olivia and Arulu. Satyr is still a solid character, but she is definitely seeing less and less meta usage these days. Alright, and then let's talk about Wind. Oh boy, Wind. I only have one character for you in Wind. Ultimate Friday. So Friday is really only recommended if you want to farm Siegfried, and in particular, she's only really used on Fridays. She is very good for that particular purpose, but outside of that, you probably have better characters. I personally wouldn't recommend Tixing Friday unless you want to really farm Siegfried at the moment. Alright, let's move on. We have some light characters to talk about. So first up, we have Utsusemi. So Utsusemi is a really strong offensive attacker who also provides a little bit of utility through her skills here with the Dispel on her third skill. However, one thing to note with Utsu is that we just had Light Guild War, and we will not see another Light Guild War for probably over a year. So with Guild War being far away, pretty much the only place you'll be using Utsu is via daily FAs. And currently, she's not really required for anything in particular for that. But she is still a strong light character and one worthy of your consideration, but not something I would personally recommend over some of the other characters here if you are missing them anyways. Alright, next up, let's talk about Volenna. So Volenna is a decent auto attack support character for light. She's been used mainly for her third skill here, which gives your allies guaranteed triple attack and echo. And also, this particular skill here is useful for providing your team with passive echoes if you have a shield weapon in your grid. She's pretty much only used for those really short burst rotations, and outside of that, you don't really end up seeing her. Alright, next up, we have a similar character to Volenna. This time we have Ferry. So Ferry, firstly, is only available in Classic once again, so if you don't have her, this is one of the best ways to get her. Her main use cases is for her third skill here, which provides everybody with triple attack and echo. But you do need 100% charge bar for this skill. So usually this is used alongside Hung Long support summon. So with this skill, she can give your team a solid normal attack burst rotation. In the last Guild War, she saw less usage just because grids got stronger and we were able to drop a Ferry S3, but she was still good if you were missing some grid pieces. But even if you aren't using her for her third skill, you can still use her for her charge attack boost passive, which she gets at 5-star, which boosts your team's charge bar gauge at the start of the battle, which can help you full chain on turn 1. Now, I wouldn't ticket Ferry specifically for this reason, but it is something to consider. I would personally rate Ferry a little lower than the other two on the list at the moment, but she is still a solid damage support for those sorts of teams. Okay, now let's move on to Dark. So Dark Guild War is next, and that is confirmed. So let's talk about some characters who I think will be useful for the upcoming Dark Guild War. First up, we have probably the best Suptixable character for Dark. We have Bowman. Bowman is a really strong offensive character. He clicks no buttons because all of his skills are auto-activated, and he has a passive which says they can only be auto-activated. You can't click any of them. And pretty much for those teams, he is really, really good. You will see him for OTKs, and you will definitely see him for short burst rotations. At the moment, he is also used for places like Akasha farming too. So please keep that in mind. A very good offensive character, one that you definitely want for any sort of burst teams. And if you're early in the game, he'll probably carry you as well, just by punching a lot of things. So next, we have another melee character. We have Tyra, or Tyra, I think they pronounce it in game. So Tyra, aside from having a hilarious sprite, which I will not spoil because it's amazing, but Tyra here is a pretty good character for burst and full auto. So her burst skills are mainly to do with this skill here and this skill here. This skill gives her flurry and also boosts her triple attack rate and also a bunch of other good buffs. And this one gives herself echo. So with these two skills, Tyra becomes a really solid auto attack damager for short NM95 burst rotations. It won't be the most optimal teams because it is clicking a lot of buttons, but it can help you out if your grid is a little bit lacking. Now, in full auto, she'll actually be quite useful for Guild War in particular because this passive here, when a foe uses a special attack, activate Tyranno Roar, which is her first skill, and this skill is significant because it removes one buff from the enemy. Guild War tends to have really annoying local buffs that the boss gets on special attacks, so Tyra's Dispel being tied to the foe doing a special attack is really good. And by the way, this skill will activate twice if her third skill is active here. As you can see, damage skills activate twice. I suspect we'll see Tyra in some burst teams for Guild War and some full autos too. Okay, next up, let's talk about Ko. Ko is, with 5-star, a really strong defensive full auto character. You can see him be used in places like Cosmos as well, but in Guild War, you'll probably see him be used in some of the higher difficulty nightmares. He passively tanks a lot of damage for your team with this skill, does skill damage in the process with this 4th skill, and overall basically just keeps your team alive. Alright, and then finally for Dark, I have one last mention, which is Manamel. So Manamel is a skill damage based full auto character. I wouldn't say she's extremely high priority, but she does her job really well. If you have weapons like Agonize or the newly released Celeste M3 weapons, she'll be doing a lot of damage through those weapons skills. And if you have Magus, Magus also boosts your team's skill damage, so she has some synergy there. Again, not a high priority pick, but something you can consider, especially if you like the character. Okay, and then finally we have 2 units in the miscellaneous category. First up, we have Petra. Petra has been announced to be getting a full limit break, a 5-star uncap this month. So obviously we don't know what the 5-star uncap does. So if you choose Petra, you're sort of gambling on that a little bit. But at the moment, Petra is a decent buffer for your team if you don't have Iwia or Neo level 150. And then the other thing Petra also does is that she activates this particular skill here whenever the foe does a special attack. So this is quite useful for OTK or just quickly bursting stages that happen to do a special attack. But outside of that, at the moment, she's not really used. So if you are ticketing her, it's because you have everybody else on the list and she's in Classic, so she's sort of hard to get now, and you're sort of gambling on her 5-star account. Next, finally, we have Tikoh. So, Tikoh in the past was pretty much only used for her blue potion. Her blue potion passive, which works off element as well. So she was only used for that. But with the recent M3 Celeste being released, the new raid, she's actually been used in some full auto setups because of the vaccine effect, which is really useful in just clearing a lot of debuffs all at once. So if you're missing Tikoh and you want this blue potion passive for the harder raids you're going to be joining, and you also want to full auto your Celeste once they start slowing down. At the moment, there's no reason to full auto solo your Celeste because everybody's joining them and it's hard to get into them. But in the future, they will slow down a little bit. And if you want to have a comfy full auto for that, Tikoh might be a pick for that. All right, so that's all the characters that I would like to mention today for this surprise special draw set, May 2024 edition. Again, this isn't all the characters in the list. There's far too many to cover. If you have any specific questions about a unit that you're considering, feel free to leave it down in the comments below. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed and found the video useful. All right, anyways, that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.